Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Mark Borstein. I'm CTO at Tremble Security, co-author of Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide, first, second, and third edition. Scott, my illustrious, infamous co-author. How you doing, man?
I am good. How about yourself, Mark?
Good, good. I hear we're wrapping up our labs on the joys of backup and restore. One of the truly sexy topics
I was
of
gonna
enterprise
say, yeah,
infrastructure.
maybe not the coolest thing to talk about, but
Oh, it
definitely.
definitely is. If you've ever been in a situation where you need to restore from a backup and it just works, like it's
Oh,
the
absolutely,
greatest thing ever.
absolutely. You live and learn, right? I mean, even on personal side, right? You get a laptop, you think, oh, why do I have to back this up? And you know, one thing goes wrong, and then you wonder where 4 terabytes of your life went.
Oh
Sorry,
my
it
god.
happened recent to me, so I say,
Oh,
oh,
I had the same thing with my lab. Um the So I've got and we're going to do a lab show in the not too distant future where we're just going to talk about home labbing because before we get to that last chapter, which is coming up, man, like it's creeping up
mhm,
on us.
that was fun.
Um, this is 14. Granted, we skipped 13. We're going to come back to it, but that chapter 19, she's coming around the corner. She's coming closer than that scene in Jurassic Park where you see the T-Rex and objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
Must go
That,
faster.
that chapter 19, yeah, go faster. That chapter 19, she's a coming. So we're definitely going to talk about our home lab. But so I've got a TrueNAS SAN, or not SAN, TrueNAS
NAS
network
in
attached
that case,
storage.
yeah. Yep. That's what I
And
run.
I earlier this year and end of last year, I'd completely rebuilt my lab. Like I had replaced the networking stack, all the cables, I had replaced the switch, all to get to 2.5 gigabit networking.
And now five's being the
And
intro, by the way, Mark. You just got up to 2.5. You'll see five in a lot of home stuff now.
yeah, I'm starting to see 5, still starting to see some 10, but not a
Yeah,
lot.
some. Yeah. It's
Um,
still kind of expensive overall.
yeah. And so I went ahead and I upgraded everything. I revamped it. Another thing that I did in my lab was I wanted to cut down on my power consumption.
Oh yeah.
And so like you'll see my two beasts back here, my two Proxmox servers that I do pretty much everything on. And then I've got, you can't really see it, but behind all the Legos, but I got a nice box running an N100
Oh yeah,
running,
it's your small one. Yeah.
yeah, OPN Sense. Which great, great router. I love it.
Yep.
And then I got a TerraMaster. I think the name of the brand is TerraMaster. I'll double check.
I think that's
Um,
familiar. Yeah.
yeah, dual bay, and I upgraded it to 32 gig of memory. Got a couple of NVMe sticks for it, and I got some Western Digital HD Blue um, SD drives. And when I plugged it into my UPS, my battery backup, I plugged it accidentally into the surge protector, not the backup side. So we had a massive power outage over the summer or earlier in the
Oh
spring,
boy.
rather. And it, even though I was striping across both of the SD, both the discs, both of them are just completely dead, completely died.
When you're doing that, were you doing mirrored? Grade
Yeah,
one?
or
Yeah.
excuse me, mirroring, not striping. You're right.
See, that's this,
Um,
people do this, Mark. They'll say, "I do this. I don't need backup." So I'm like, "Yeah, guess what? Corruption mirrors just as much as
Yeah, no, you don't
regular
want
data."
to stripe, especially in today's day and age when you're working with high speed. Like, I guess if you're still using mechanical drives, um, but in this situation, I've got two solid states.
Yeah,
Uh,
mirroring's good though, right? Because if one dies, that's the whole thing.
right, you want to mirror it,
Hmm.
and both drives just dead as a doornail. Like I even ended up picking up. My desk is a mess right now. What do I do? I ended up picking up. I'll have to look for it, but I ended up picking up one of these devices.
Well, we gotta save some of this for the home lab, Mark. Come on.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
ended up picking up one of these devices, one of these cables that lets you plug in to a SSD on one end and a USB.
oh yeah, I got a
Another.
bunch of
So you
converters
could
like
just
that. I got
plug it
NVMe
in right into
SSDs.
your computer. And I plugged it into like 4 computers and the BIOSes wouldn't even like just completely shorted out.
Yeah, that's
So I mean so even when you're home labbing, even when no matter what you're doing, please, backups are gonna save your life. And I will tell you that where I did have backups, I didn't have everything backed up. Where I did have backups were super important. I'm excited. I gotta look at it. Proxmox now has a backup system.
they have for a while actually. They have it's up to 4. Proxmox
Yeah.
back
Oh,
to 4.
yeah. I guess I didn't really know much about it. I started looking at different ways to because the TrueNAS doesn't have a real backup system built in. At least
And they
this
have some
version.
for like phones and images and stuff like
Yeah, the
that. But
new.
you can run that
Um,
backup, by the way, as a VM on your pure NAS.
right, and so I think what I'm going to do is I want to upgrade my TrueNAS. Because it's I think 2 versions behind right now. The
Yeah.
version of TrueNAS scale I got was the last one that ran Kubernetes,
Oh
and I
yeah. So
absolutely
you're
loved
really
it because of
behind.
that.
The latest update has
Yeah,
a lot of new stuff in it too.
well, and they got rid of Kubernetes
They
last
did
version,
a while
which
ago.
really made me sad.
It's
It's
pure
like, oh,
Docker.
I've got this beautiful little, Kubernetes server now, and
You know what
now
you
it,
do, Mark? You install Portainer on the newest version, and then just click on Kubernetes for that,
nah,
or
I've
not.
now
But
got it's actually better the way I have it set up now because that little N100 in the or whatever I think it's an N100
that's
in
pretty
the
common chip in it. It's a
yeah
quad
in
Pentium something, right? So
yeah it doesn't have enough horsepower to really like it like
oh, they
I
work
didn't
great for
run
just
much.
NAS. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it did not have the horsepower. But we'll do a home lab.
Yeah, I
We're
got you know
definitely
me.
gonna do a
I
home
like
lab.
my SBCs, my single board computers, and that. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Let's get back to our backups.
but yeah, let's talk a little bit about so last time, I think we did the backups. Are we going to be doing the restores this time? How far do we get
We
along?
did. We're going to look at a couple of things. So we got to like as you said, the backups. I'm in the wrong window here because I want to make sure this is all
And
set.
while Scott's pulling that up, anybody out there in TV land, wherever you are, whether you're with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, we got this one out pretty late, so that's on me. Twitter, please say hi, say hello. We love answering. We had a great conversation going last time, but yeah, wherever you are, please say hello. And then you have. Let me go ahead, add you to the stage.
There we go. And let me move this out of the way. Very cool. Yeah, so what we did get to, like you said last time, Mark, hopefully that is kind of legible. Any bigger of a font, and I'll get 3 letters per line. It doesn't look too bad on my screen. How about yours, Mark? Look okay?
If you could make it a little bit bigger, I think that would be good. And then you've
I'll
got
try
your.
one more. That's getting.
Did you
Right.
update your PS1 or whatever?
Yeah, I just showing my name right now. I'm already at a 16 point. Go to an 18.
Sent it over in the private chat if you need to.
Yeah, well, I got it. Yeah, because I'm actually in. I'm definitely shortened it because
Okay,
I'm in the
cool.
chapter 14 folder. But I mean, you're gonna shorten it even more. So if you really want me to, I can just go down to a string here. I was doing my name, but because you can do it that way. Cool. So yeah, what we were getting into in the book, we're kind of, if I was going through that, I have it open in a different monitor. We deployed MinIO. We went through the UI on that. I think that's how we closed it. We showed that in fact backups did occur. Right? So we went into the console because we have the ingress for that, but didn't get any further because of course we ran out of time. So this is the same machine from the last call. And what we can do real quick, same
The
machine, but
last call. That's how you know this is an enterprise. Everything's a call. Everything's a
that's just my
WebEx.
life.
Everything. No, we're a live stream. We're rebels. We're yeah.
I
Call.
didn't
We'll
know
go with
people still existed in real life. All I ever see is video screens. So I did do a new backup today, just because before we get into a call or a session, I want to make sure that okay, we're looking okay at the beginning. So same thing as last week, though. I did, or 2 weeks ago, I did initial backup was the name of it. All right, so we can just we just do like a Valero command. You get to see everything that's out there, the commands. This is actually covered in the chapter as well. We don't go through every command, of course, but we'll be doing gets to see the backups. Like I just did a git backup on that, or you can even do a describe on these. So if I were to try to do a describe and initial backup, we can see that it tells me, yep, we backed up stuff, blah blah blah, a bunch of stuff. Now these warnings, I do want to kind of cover these. These are not necessarily bad. I know they don't look great, right? They're saying warning and errors. The reason I want to bring this up is at the bottom of the backup, you will see, depending what you're looking at, this one doesn't show it here. If you do the kube control one, I'll show it. But these warnings are because when we set up Valero to back up to MinIO, we actually, because we're in the same namespace, we set it up to use the Kubernetes service. Okay, kind of makes sense, right? If you're in the same namespace, why not? Well, when I try to run Valero commands now from a machine, it's trying to hit, well, what you would see is a service name. Well, I can't, right? I'm outside the cluster as per se, right? Because I'm just on my host. So if we weren't going to the service name for Kubernetes and we were actually hitting a real external address for it, you wouldn't see these errors. So my backup's fine. All the data is there. Just don't let these kind of warnings kind of freak you out.
So,
right?
so when you ran Valero, you're running it locally against a remote cluster.
Well, this one we're not. We're running it all intra, right?
Okay.
Mark, so what we did was in the exercises, we have MinIO here.
Right.
And of course, here's the node agent Valero. So when I told Valero to set up, I just said, well, you're in the same namespace, right? Let's just hit this service. And that's why, because we're actually using just MinIO dot.
Right.
Now, of course, would you ever keep your storage on the cluster that you're backing up?
Sure, why not?
I was going to say, yeah, what's wrong with that, right?
That sounds fine. Yeah.
It's kind of like that whole idea.
Wrong.
It's that idea of your monitoring system is actually installed in your cluster. Well, that's great. When the cluster goes down, guess what alerts you get? Nothing. There's nothing
Hey, now
there.
hold on.
Unless you're
I am going to defend that one a little bit because I do it. As long as you have something that monitors the monitor.
Well, true.
So
I mean, you got to have
that one. I will defend a little bit.
To a point, right. Or if you're rolling it up, at least too, and at that point it's being monitored, right? So the central system's going to say, hey, that's not there. I get it, but this one, no. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, and don't get me wrong. I mean, even worse, right? My storage is part of my cluster. So it's not just that MinIO is, right? If MinIO is hitting a S3 bucket external, that's not a problem, right? Because the data is there, the backup data is there. And actually, we're going to kind of show a similar idea to that when we do our second cluster. So yeah, we'll get into this. I'm going to do describe again. Tells us, backed up 897 resources. Those are just standard Kubernetes resources, right? So it went through the whole cluster, basically all the giant, text that we can get there, all your deployments, your services, whatever. Down at the bottom, we can see there's been backups from Copia or Copia. I'm not exactly sure. Probably Copia because it's copying. This is what backs up our data, right? We did mention this 2 weeks ago. We were mentioning this Restic and Copia, where because we're not on a CSP where snapshots would work, volume snapshots, we have to have some kind of I'm going to call it a driver to back up our data. So it's just letting me know that, yep, we actually did. Now, if you're curious about what data was backed up, you can look at details, and it'll even tell you what it completed. like the BusyBox test PVC, and it's going to find some interesting ones, right? Because anything that's considered, well, data like Scratch or even other volumes. So it's not just the PVCs. It's going to be anything that you've declared as a storage type of location. Technically, if you look at my cluster, I think we have 2 PVCs. 3. Well, there's a reason for that other one. That was when I was playing earlier. And I didn't back this one up since then. So you can get a lot of data this way. Don't worry about those little errors. Everything looks good here to me. So we've got the backups. Now, we did the backup by running the Valero backup command, right? Something that we show in the book as well. We did a whole cluster, right, just for the first one, because it's a small cluster, right? Oh, somebody, did I miss a?
We're very serious people here. To
Comment
LinkedIn
here.
user, I have a funny feeling I know who you are, but unfortunately, we seem to have lost who people are. LinkedIn's weird with our integration with them. Like sometimes it works great, sometimes it don't work at all, and we lose who it is. I'll probably pop in. I'm gonna guess I know who it is. I think if I pop in over to LinkedIn, I'm gonna know.
I take kind of offense to Mark's look there because he's probably listening to me and he's just getting bored. He's like, oh, I don't want to listen to Scott anymore.
And I was correct. So hello, Boris. Thank you. I've got no need to fear. Boris is in fact here. No, I don't want to. No, I don't. Shoot. Okay, there we go. No, we were getting a bit of an echo because I had the live streaming from LinkedIn. Well, we're live streaming to LinkedIn.
No, one and only Boris.
Yeah, but close that. All right, that'll make life easier.
So we got our backups as we've seen. Now from here, let's go a little bit more because again, let's kind of recapping, right? So we had a namespace created last week called demo. We were just running a BusyBox container. I have PVC in the name because we do some storage in this, right? So if we just want to do a little refresher, we'll exec into this. Okay, so what we did is we actually mount, I can't do that way. Okay, cool. We mount it into just MNT. So we've taken the PVC that we have and I've put it in MNT. So we can see that we've got our test file, original data, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, not even that the actual data names themselves are going to matter for what we're going to show. But so we can prove that they're in there. and of course, the pod's running. Okay. Now, when we talked about creating backups through the kind of following the format of the book, we ran an interactive backup, right? We said, hey, go run this now. Cool. That comes in handy. I doubt you're going to do that a lot in the real world, right? You might automate, hey, back up something before an upgrade. You know, maybe some
automation in Kubernetes. Why would we do that?
Yeah, it's not conducive to that, is it? It's just not good. Yeah, that's then people could do a backup of their own namespace, for an example, before doing an upgrade. You know, maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it does. Depends, right? Somebody's going to say, well, they have pipelines. Why? Let's not even get into this, right? People will imperatively do things. If they do that, they're not going to have it. So I'm just usually there as a platform owner saying whatever I can do to help, whether it's the wrong process or not for me to say.
And let's be real, you know, from a compliance standpoint, if your process says make a backup before you do the thing, you make a backup before you do the thing.
Always. It's just, it can be safer, right? Yeah. You might think you're not going to make a mistake, but that's why they're called mistakes.
Yeah. And quite frankly, you know, it's better to have that backup and not need it than not have the backup and need it.
Yeah, kind of like what we were talking about before, which is
exactly.
Life insurance, car insurance, home insurance. You don't want to use it.
Yep.
But hey, if you have to, you're lucky you have it. So interactive is one way to do it. I'm going to kind of bring the book down just quickly. It might be a little bit difficult to see, but anybody can, of course, look at their copy or look at their PDF, whatever. We can schedule backups, right? That's probably the most common way we're going to do something. And this follows a standard format a lot of people are probably familiar with, where it's going to be the month, the hour, or I'm sorry, the minute, the hour, the day, the month.
It's cron, isn't it?
It is cron, yes.
The cron
Yep, yep. And I don't know if Cron has these or not, but it might. Mark, it's been a while since I had to deal with it. There's some built-in ones. So you got some
Yep.
shorthands, well, right? So you want to write one for daily, you could put in 0, 1, blah, blah, blah. Or just do daily, right? Then it's midnight.
Don't know if Cron does that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I've never really looked, but to be honest, I'm usually setting something specific.
Yeah.
So, and this one, not sure. And plus, you might want daily, but not at midnight. So
Right.
you've got to go and do it yourself anyways. So you can easily set up a job for a schedule for whatever you want to do, weekly, hourly, really just up to you and whatever your organization might want. The other thing that we did is we did a full cluster backup. Again, great for an example, but we don't necessarily want all that data. And we're going to do something a little bit more pinpoint with our next example, but we're going to stick with the backup we already have. So following along in the book, I'm going over to really page 424, where we get into all the CLI commands, which we're not going to get through all of these, right? Plus, they update all the time. Right? They're always adding other options and other features. But we kind of go through the most common ones of looking at your backup locations, looking at the backups, looking at the schedules, looking at restores. So everything's audited. You can use the Valero command for all of this. Valero is something like our Git backups. These are also all Kubernetes resources. So as much as you can do it this way, you can also use kube control and look for the CRDs, right? It just depends on your preferences. I kind of like the Valero one. It just outputs a little bit better, probably just because I'm used to it, right?
Yeah.
It's just a preference thing. Although it makes it a little bit harder to automate this stuff if I'm going to look for things. Now I got to have the Valero binary. So if I'm writing some kind of controller that needs to look at these resources for some reason, or heck, you're using Argo to create these resources, right? You're probably not going to use the Valero binary. You're going to use the Kubernetes native. Not uncommon, right? We all know this. Most command line tools do nothing more than call the APIs and resources. So we go into the describe, went through this. Let's get into the real stuff. And just a huge list of just example commands, right? Of how it's going to delete this, restore that, right down the line. So finally, restoring from a backup. So we've gone through all this about creating a backup, which is very important. But we went through 2 weeks ago again. You should probably test this at the minimum. And let's assume we have a major problem here. So we are going to, I'm going to move this off the screen because we don't need everybody to see that. This is the problem with dealing with sharing out like this. You just can't have enough things open for everybody to see.
We don't have enough screen real estate.
Definitely not for this kind of thing. No. So let's go back into here. We can see we've got that namespace demo. Now we know demo had a PVC. We showed that, right? I said get the PVCs. I didn't show that, sorry. So there's our PVC. We know our data's out there, test claim. Well, I know Mark and I joke a lot about this, but this never happens, right? I don't
never done it.
Wrong
never.
And
you
of course,
can't prove it either because it's gone.
You can't, and hopefully you've got API auditing. Hopefully you're not using a shared account on a shared system.
A shared account? That's a ridiculous, crazy accusation, which I will not legitimize by even responding to.
Or if you're using the kube config file from a Bastion host,
nobody uses
master
kube config file out there, right?
No.
Please
it does take a little time, everybody, because it's trying to terminate everything, right? So the finalizers are kicking in, data being one of those, right? So we just kind of got to sit here for a second, and it's gone. So it doesn't take forever, but it was just a small little busy box, right? So we get the phone call. It says, my namespace is gone. I don't know what happened, right? It's always that. Or maybe one of your SREs did this, or one of your engineers, and of course they logged off real quick. They see it happen and go, yeah, nobody will ever know. I'll just log off the system and go home.
We've never seen that one before.
Never in my life.
Never.
30 years in IT, no, that doesn't happen. And I've never done anything like that. Not that anybody can prove.
Nope.
Now, what we'll do now is, okay, so they call us and they say, can you get this back for us? I'm going to say, yep, as a good platform owner, I'm going to say, let's do that. Now, our backup right now has the whole cluster, right? I did say that before. So now when I restore, I don't want to restore all the cluster. Then we're really going to have problems with the other developers that say, what happened? I'm back on version 1. I was on version 5. And then we have to say, I don't know. I didn't do it. So we're going to use
Shaggy defense is always a proper defense.
Just got to play dumb, right? If you get really good at it, you can pull it off, Mark. It's Now, as we said, we're going to, this is kind of interesting. We're going to create a restore. So we have this in the book again. So I got the command already copied out because, as we know, the book can format things interesting when you try to copy and paste it. So I'm going to do a restore, create it from the backup, initial backup. And this is where I can do the inclusions of what? I'm going to say I want to include.
Now, even before you do that, you deleted your namespace, which means you deleted your PVC.
Yes.
Is the PV associated with it also deleted?
Well, let's take a look at that, Mark. But considering the PVC, the auto provisioner should have gotten rid of that. So, yep, I've only got my min.io.
Okay, so when you do a backup using Valero, you're not just backing up the YAML, you're backing up the PVs, right? The persistent volume.
Yes and no, depending how you deploy it. So
okay.
I think you had somebody come to the door when this came up 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
You can set up your the Copia plugin to either opt in or opt out. Now, I'm a fan of opt out because if you do opt in, no PVCs get backed up unless you explicitly tell it what ones to back up.
Gotcha.
I like opt out where it's everything's backed up unless you say don't do this namespace, right? I mean, again,
Makes
preference.
sense. Yep.
So yes, in our case, we do the deployment as an opt out approach.
So unless I specifically say don't back up this persistent volume, because like I might not want to run a backup on a PV that like supports a database, right? Because databases have their own backup systems, and I've had this bite me in the butt before, where you run a backup at the wrong time, the data is corrupted, database. You should use your backup.
There's so many issues with it, anyways, right, Mark? Because this is why stuff like Kasten exists, is they have the intelligence and the agents to know how to quiesce the correct way, right? It's like Exchange in the old. You just didn't run a backup on Exchange. It's just not a good thing.
I thankfully was never an Exchange administrator.
My wife is still
Exchange administrators.
Exchange, yeah, it can be, and it's a monster system. I mean, it doesn't.
Oh yeah,
it's huge.
They still do Exchange anywhere?
Most have gone to Exchange on 365 or
yeah.
To be honest, I mean, some will do some on-prem or remote locations, or they'll do a hybrid.
Yeah.
I know, like my wife's organization, the county, is converting most over. Right, so they're demising stuff. They still got some stuff on-prem, but yeah, I know all the backup issues that she used to run into. Not to say that those necessarily go away either. Let's face it, cloud providers don't back your stuff up typically.
No,
they're happy to give you the place. Yeah, you still got to do something. Now they'll give you the tools for a lot of them, but you still got to do that work. Again, this goes back to the backup thing, right? Because people go to cloud and say, "I don't need a backup." I'm like, "Oh, you do."
Yeah.
All they're going to do, Google or Microsoft's going to say, sorry. And that's it, right? It's not their fault. So, yep, we go back to our command here. And we only want that one namespace, again, because I don't want to restore, Mark's Open Unison namespace to a week ago or wherever this might be, right? Or anybody else's namespace. So in this case, we're going to say, okay, kick that off. And it happens real quick. I always like that Valero gives you the command right away to say, hey, you want to see something? Run this. And it's going to happen quick, right? Because this was not exactly a big namespace or a big PVC. Again, here's those warnings because it's looking for that we can't resolve that. And not a problem. And just to prove that, we're going to, actually, let's do the NS first, just to prove that's back. We'll see demo is 29 seconds old. And if we look at the pods, obviously, 35 seconds busy box. If we look at the PVC, we can see the PVC is there. Now, here's the big point on your side, Mark, PV. So
that extra PV.
How did this get here, though? Because, well, the PVC gets recreated. In this case, the local path provisioner, right, or whatever CSI you have, that does it, creates the PVs out of these. So the PVC request is what's happening.
And then Valero restores the data onto the PV once it gets created.
The PVC in this, yeah.
PVC through the persistent volume, but yeah.
Yeah. The PV is, and for people listening, right, the PV is actually knows how to get to I'm going to say the disk itself, right, over on the storage, wherever it happens to be. And then our claim is just saying we want to use that PV, put the data on it. So if we look at our pod again, though, we're going to say, how do I, smoke and mirrors, as you always say, Mark, right? Let's just prove that, in fact, this is all back, right? It's easy to see we got a pod back. But as we just mentioned before, MNT is where our data was. And just make it look even friendlier. We'll say, oh, cool. And this would, of course, work if I did it with just deleting some files even, right? That's probably even more common than somebody says, oops, deleted namespace.
Right. So could you delete could you restore just the PVC?
There is, yes. So what you do, let me do this. Let me show you this. I'll go back to the restore. So we could exclude. So you can see we're including basically everything except for mostly cluster level, right? We don't have those anywhere. So we're saying everything. What we could say is don't do, or just include PVCs. So it depends how you want to do your restore line. Easier this way, but we could say just PVC. Now, of course, we can't say just PVC in this file. That's not really what this is for. It doesn't have that intelligence. It's basically a giant copy command, or a write command right off the storage.
Is it doing a copy or is it doing like an rsync? I would think it'd do like an rsync to catch all of those little hidden files.
Yeah, because you do a copy, you're going to miss certain things. Yeah, it's not like a snapshot that does it. Oh, well, we got Marino.
Yeah, we got Marino. Now, okay, so now we see Marino's picture, but not Boris's.
He's hiding.
Which makes me think that Boris is doing something shady. Are you doing something shady, Boris, that we don't see your picture? I just, makes me think about these things. But hello to Marino.
Hey, Marino. Good to see you. Well, kind of, right? We don't get full videos, so just portions of it. So, we got to back up. We've got to restore. Okay, that's great. And you might say, again, people don't care. Okay, but the next one I want to get into is something I really do find very useful. So let me just make sure everything else is good right here. Okay, good. What if, I get this a lot where I got to test something, right? So I might, old days was easy, right? You propped up a VM, you did something, you deployed, you tested things. This is great. But now your namespace has issues. So Mark's deployed something. I could play with that potentially in production if I really needed to, right? If it's not working. But what if it's...
I don't always test, but when I do, I usually test in production.
Test in production, and as I said, on a Friday afternoon.
Of course.
If you're going to be brave, be real brave, Mark, right?
Go bold or go home.
It's, so what you can do is you want to get another cluster. Now, I could ask Mark to, okay, can you take your app, please deploy it over here? Oh, wait, I got to get you access to this namespace now. Can you do this? It's just a lot of steps.
There is an easy way to do that.
There is. There's other ways, but let's not get into that here, because there could be, but we're talking about average people with clusters. And you want to do some other testing. So I have a backup of the cluster. We already showed this, but we're going to do a little bit more. So here's our main cluster again. We want some more workloads. We're not going to do anything super crazy or super big, right? But we've given you this script. It's called create backup objects. Probably could have picked a better name for it, but if we were to look at it quickly, it's going to create demo 1, 2, 3, 4 namespace. in each of those namespaces, it's just going to deploy an Nginx container, just to have some kind of workloads, right? So we're just going to quickly run this. Doesn't take long. Again, kind of small. Looking at that cluster, we do our namespace. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just look at all pods, just because although with this giant font, it's much bigger than it should be. And we got Nginx running on demo 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. And again, let's pretend they're bigger workloads, right? We know we can redeploy Nginx pretty simple, but maybe it's got a ton of config maps, or hell, maybe they're Tomcat with a lot of Java. Just a much more complex config. So we're going to want a new backup for this, right? But I don't want all the cluster. I know specifically I want to work with namespaces demo 1, 2, 3, 4. You saw in the restore how I did that with doing the including for it. So in the book, if anybody's following along on that, it's going to be on page 431, where we actually show this command. Of course, if you copy and paste it, it doesn't format correctly. So we're going to say backup, backup create. We're just calling it namespace demo because I want these 4 namespaces. And I want to include just demo 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty straightforward. No data on these, by the way. We could have added a PVC or something. But
now, out of curiosity, does this command, like, you need to be a cluster admin really to run this command, right? You couldn't be an admin in all 4 of these namespaces and run this.
It's a trick question. You need access to the CRs too, though, Mark, right? So behind the scenes, this is running the backup. So you could delegate that off and obviously aggregate it to maybe the admin that goes to namespace level. But in this case, unless you owned all those, no, you couldn't do this. Right? There's ways to kind of tweak that, but to be honest, it is kind of a nightmare. As you know, multi-tenant cluster, that's a lot of different stuff to have to maintain.
Yeah.
Right. I am a fan of that. I want to give developers their own everything that I can. Just for keeping the wear and tear on my staff.
Well, yeah. So you don't get
time.
a phone call every time somebody needs something.
Yeah. Or any of my SREs, right? I don't want anybody to have to get called at 2 in the morning. And why make a dev wait? Right. Yeah. That's the bigger thing. Happier dev because they can get their own stuff, and they should be able to. With the right security controls and options. Doesn't always work quite that easy, but that's our hope. So we submitted it. It's successful. I hate the output sometimes because it almost looks like an error because it happens so fast. There's something wrong? I'm like, no, it's all good. So it backed up 36 items between the 4, which going through every resource that's in there. You can see that we don't have anything about PVCs in here because we just didn't attach any. Again, we could have, didn't need to. You all just saw that, so it doesn't really matter. So we've got that running. Now we need another cluster. So we have another kind configuration. If we take a look in this directory, nothing major, but one main thing that we have to do on this, we're on a single host. We have a single IP address. Now you might have more than one, different story. We just won't complex things with that. You can only have one socket per IP, right? And a socket is IP address : port. Right. Well, we're already using 6443 for our first cluster, right? So if we do a Docker PS, there's our kind cluster, right? We can even see that here, 6443. We want a second kind cluster. And we haven't done this through the book up to this point, really. But you can happily
run. You have 2 kind clusters back in the load balancing?
I did something with KGB, but that one, I think I changed that to be KubeADM because it got more complex. I did have something on that, though, Mark, at one point with an IP address. I did that in the excursions. Okay. So I really would, if this is my own cluster and it wasn't meant to be for the book only, I'd add a VIP, a virtual IP, and I would use that with 6443. Gotcha. Because then you have all the sockets. Because right now, if I deploy another kind cluster, I can't do 443 for ingress, right? Because one IP socket, we're in trouble. We don't care at this point. That's getting quite complex. I do cover in one of the excursions again, multi-cluster IPs or multi-cluster with multiple IPs.
Well, and I will say I have taken the lab instructions that you used for setting up Metal LB, and it works beautifully.
Oh, I use that
Um,
like all the time on every cluster I do, right?
I,
It's the
I
same thing.
yeah, I don't run a lot of Metal LB, but that was a big thing that I changed when I redid my lab cluster. Was I went from having every Nginx as a node port basically running on every single one of the nodes.
Mm.
So that way I had coverage, um, to using Metal LB for, uh, for my IP
Yep.
speaker. And it's just like, it's magic. It's indistinguishable from magic as an
It's
app that
so much cooler.
like, oh, this worked.
It's so much better than, and I'm not picking on F5 for this reason, but to use it just for that, you've still got your central choke point then.
Yeah.
And you don't have that with MetaLB really because you can go between nodes. So you
Yep.
can kind of scale out and get your traffic better. Now there are some other issues with MetaLB you always got to consider. There's only one speaker, right, per setup. That's okay. It just means that if that pod goes down, the newest ARP list that's going to get sent out goes to another pod,
Right.
and that can take about 3-4 seconds. But that's considered enterprise level recovery. Normally 5 seconds and
For my
below.
home lab,
Oh,
that's
home lab
great.
even more, but in production,
Like,
it's
you
not that
know,
bad, right? 5 seconds and
yeah,
below is still tier 0 on
it
most apps.
yeah, and like I wanted to try to use Cilium to do it, and I like Metal LB just from a simplicity standpoint. Oh my god, so easy.
Oh yeah, and Cilium though, you can't do it at the pod level, right? You want to do that at a service level
Right.
too, and I think they've added that. I mean, in the old days, a lot of these CNIs did pods, but not services. Calico in particular, I remember I posted in the Git forums for that. I always thought it was odd. I'm like,
Yeah.
you give IPs and you give pods and IP live IP, but not services. Who the hell does that? There's good reasons for it. I won't get into that one either. But so I'm going to create this cluster quick. It won't take long, right? So I got a little script I'm going to run for it, just
Um.
to run it. And this cluster, by
Yeah.
the way, is very basic. It's just KindNet and everything else, but just to have it.
Did they release 34 yet? Is that because that's coming out soon?
Marino's on there. He should know that off the top of his head.
Well, I don't know why Marino would know off the top of his head.
Because he's always watching the CNCF stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I guess he is. I think you're an ambassador, Marino, if you're still out there. Um, but I
I want
think
to say
30.
I know it's close. Well, let's see.
Yeah,
If not, it's going to be. It's August. It should be this month then.
yeah, because we're at what, 3 releases a year now?
Yeah. They went to that 4 months instead of 3. That's why I was thinking if they're following the real cycle, then it would be sometime
Yeah,
now. Cool. So what we've got here is another cluster. It didn't take long, like I said. If we do a Docker PS, again, that cluster I'm running a single node, right? I overall wasn't too concerned about having multiples. To be honest, before the session here, I was having some issues with open files. I was telling Mark in a text. I said, "Oh, my cluster's failing," and
yeah,
I had to go track that down, and it got me to this level at least. Now you'll notice that I'm listening on 6444 because again, I can't. If you don't have that, you're going to get an error during kind that says, "Yeah, you
right.
can't run this." Okay, so let's go a step forward. If I do get nodes, we'll see that I only have one. Because what kind does by default is the last cluster you deploy becomes your current context or your use,
Right.
which is great. But let's do a config, get our context.
So there's a great plugin called CTX
Oh yeah.
that it doesn't work on Windows. They only have it compiled for Mac and Linux. Uh, but it is my favoriteest thing in the world because it makes it so much easier to view what context you're in, switch contexts. Um,
Which can get confusing
yeah,
for a lot of people, really.
without having to use the manual config commands, which I find kind of clunky?
I'm so used to them. I get, and the problem is when I'm demoing stuff, Mark, I like to use native
Yeah.
just because not everybody does that.
Yeah, and we don't
Um,
use any kube control plugins in any of the book examples.
right, right. I mean, I think they're great. I don't even do shorthand for most things because of that. And yeah, my soon-to-be carpal tunnel is probably, that's probably why, because I have to type everything. So we're in there, our new cluster. Again, we'll do the git ns, pretty basic cluster. Now, we have nothing installed, right? But we're going to need Valero. So to do a restore, you obviously are going to need that. So it's in the book again, but we got to do another install, and we'll install this to the new cluster. Now, it's a multiple line kind of command, so I've got it in Notepad just to format it more correctly. So if you go back, it doesn't change a lot from what we did 2 weeks ago. Typical, install it, provider, what image, the bucket. Here's where it gets different though. The host original cluster, we were running min.io in that namespace. Well, we don't have that namespace in this cluster. So we have to now tell it, instead of using min.io.valero.blah blah, the actual ingress for it. So we're telling it to go to the cluster, and the IP happens to be 10.2.1.95. nip.io, blah, blah. So we deploy it. Okay, it shouldn't take long. Again, it's pretty quick. When we look at the namespaces, we've now got our Valero. And we go in, it's running. This is where it gets kind of cool. All we do is deploy Valero. Right? We haven't done backups. I haven't run a command anywhere that says Valero, at least in this cluster. And this is the drum roll in a live demo. I'm going to say get backups. It shows me backups.
Nice.
Now, how does it know that? Because I pointed to min.io from that other cluster where the backups are.
So min.io is storing not just the backup data, but all the metadata as well.
You got a bunch of JSONs in there. Yeah, if you were to go through the UI, Mark, you'd actually see a bunch of the files. So
does Valero have a UI?
Valero does not.
Or you're talking about the min.io UI?
That's the min.io UI.
Okay.
You can see the bucket. Valero, there were some open source projects. They've all died that I saw. From a personal level, right? I was looking at it for actual work stuff at one point. And everything was like 3 years old, dead, deprecated. The vendors will do it. A lot of them have those, but I haven't seen a current open source one. Maybe someday, something will come out. Then again, it's a nightmare to upkeep too, because Valero does change quite a bit. So I'm trying to get back to the book. So we've gone through to build a new cluster. We've installed Valero, and I listed the backups. Okay, so now I'm going to try to restore. And if you're following along, it's on page 435. Luckily, it's just a one-line command, so this is pretty easy to do. I'm going to say create a restore from the backup and namespace demo. So this was, you can see it right above it. There's namespace demo when I said get backups. We only have those namespaces in it, so I'm not going to say skip anything. There's no reason to. I want all 4 of those namespaces. So let's take a look at the describe on it. It's, well, probably a boring one anyways, because nothing's going to show in it saying, yep, give everything. And let's make sure. There's our demos, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just go right to 4. Actually, let's just do an A, because there won't be that many. And there's demos 1, 2, 3, 4 with Nginx running. So I've now taken it. Let's just make sure so nobody thinks I did something with context behind the scenes, right? So we're definitely in the second cluster, and we restored it all. Now, of course, it's a separate cluster, right? Ingress would have to change. People got to think about this when you're restoring things. This can't have the same ingress typically because depending on what you're doing, right? Most enterprises do a wildcard into it. So Not the end of the world, but it takes a couple things where you might have to change them. But the deployments are there, the main configs. Heck, depending on what you're doing, the secrets. Now, granted, if it's using external vault, now we got a whole other thing we got to deal with, which is
Right.
authorizing the cluster. And yeah, we could turn this into a day's conversation, right, Mark? You know that.
Well, I think it's really cool though that you can do that kind of a portable backup. And it's important here to make the distinction between a backup of a namespace and the APIs of the namespace, right? Because this is, because if you're doing GitOps, you could do something similar, except for the persistent volumes. And that's the big difference, is being able to say, you know what, we're going to take a snapshot of our namespace and copy the data. Now, if you've got multi-terabyte persistent volumes, that might not be the best approach. But if you've got some simple stuff, or you've got something that's manageable, being able to say, okay, I'm going to spin up a cluster quickly for you, right? Because imagine in the year of our Lord here, 2025, instead of spinning up a cloud cluster or whatever, you say, you know what? Here's a V cluster. I've restored your namespace, so you can go do some stuff on it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, V-cluster is a good example, right?
And spin it up, get it working, make sure you're happy with it, kill it.
Well, and even then, at least you're using the same wildcard, not the same URL.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So you can do interesting things like that to really be able to provide your users with a lot of flexibility. This is one of the things. So get on my soapbox here. I really dislike platforms that try to hide Kubernetes from people.
Well, no secret. I like OpenShift 4, but 3, that was my problem with 3. Right? Too much masking. Really trying to hide it. And yeah, to me, just not a big fan, because you don't learn enough.
Well, it's not even just you don't learn enough, but like, as I've worked on a lot of platform as a service systems over the decades, and they all tend to find the same, they all tend to die in the same problem, right? Where, I can just run this one command and my app is running. That's perfect. That's beautiful. That's awesome. But here's this edge case that's super important to me. How are we going to do that? Can't. We haven't factored it in. We have to build it into our engineering process. And products take a long time to manage. And so you see this swing in the pendulum of PaaS, where the people who own and maintain these custom platforms are under so much load to do these edge cases that they finally throw their hands up and say, you know what? I don't care. Here's a part of the cloud. You do whatever the heck you want. And it goes to this other extreme, because as much as we like to say there's blameless, postmortems when there's an issue, everybody's always got to be responsible, especially in enterprise. Somebody's got to be responsible.
Somebody all the time, yes.
Yeah. And so you see this pendulum go back and forth. Whereas when you let your developers know that they're using Kubernetes, you can do things like this and make their lives better, make your life better, because now you're actually leveraging the platform the way it was meant to be built, rather than, here's this highly constrained platform that does only the things we want to let you do, even though it's not the things that you need to do for the business.
Yep. And then you start making it do things it shouldn't, like, PCF, right? I've seen people do some interesting things with that.
Well, it's not even like things that you shouldn't, but it's like it's more of the, I'm trying to remember where I first heard it. I think it was Brian Grassley. I heard just say it for the first time, where it's guardrails, not tracks.
That's what I call it. But I don't want to call it security. We call it guardrails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to give you a foot gun. Please don't use it. But you're a responsible adult. You get the foot gun. And, that foot gun gives you a lot of capabilities, including shooting yourself in the foot. But at the end of the day, as developers and as admins and as people responsible, you need to be responsible for your systems. If I, as the platform owner, don't give you that layer of control, everything's my fault.
Well, and when you get that kind of control, you also get blamed for things that are missed, but you're giving the controller, they should be responsible for that. There's a fine line. Very, very tough to follow.
Absolutely.
As we were talking, Mark, quickly, what I wanted to do is I did a backup of the PVC namespace quickly.
Okay.
Just so everybody does. And you'll see here, I just called it demo backup.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to restore it now to the new cluster. And I just thought, you know what, let's do this because we didn't do a PVC example.
Not there's a lot of BS, just not in kube control. Actually, no, there's a lot of BS in kube control too. I'll give that.
So we then got our busy box PVC. We then go into get the PVC, so you can see that it's bound. And again, let's just see in nodes to show you new cluster, right? It's only one node. And we exec into it then. Let's just make sure the data is in fact there. And we go to mount. There's that data.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Why not show that quickly?
Yeah, that's really big. And that to me is because as a developer, I look at something like Valero. I'm like, well, why do I want this instead of GitOps? Right. And it's not one or the other, right? It's important to note that GitOps is not a backup and disaster recovery system.
Right.
Right. Because it doesn't do the PVs. It doesn't do the data. It'll do the metadata. It'll do the infrastructure. You can restore all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you've got source data or you've got database data, it ain't going to do that for you. You still have to back those things up.
You do. And the imperative stuff, right? Mark, we had this discussion not long ago, and I've written stuff internally where I assumed people would always deploy a manifest, right? I'm like, okay, so my controller watches for an annotation X is seen, go do this for them. Well, I never wrote those controllers to look for different changes, because when you do an imperative and you do an edit on a manifest, it's a totally different watch.
Yeah.
So as you know, I kind of was like, why would somebody do this? But you kind of stuck up for it. But that's the point, though. That wouldn't have been caught in the pipeline because they changed it interactively, added the annotation. So if they did a restore from, I'm sorry, not a restore, if they did a redeploy from Git, they lose that annotation.
Yeah.
Whereas here they're not. That's why I kind of like taking a backup like this, because I know the data I'm getting is exactly what they have today.
Exactly.
Not what they think they have.
Yep.
And that's a good test.
Yeah, and I've got some friends that are probably screaming at me, through the ether, like, no, when you use GitOps, that's the only way you should. Don't even give your users kube control. And it's like, look, sorry, at the end of the day, if you need access to a cluster, you got to get access to that cluster. Like, and you don't want to, when you get called into the blame storming session for why the app was down, and you're told, why didn't you fit? If you knew what the fix was, why didn't you apply it? Well, I couldn't get into Git for some reason, or Git wasn't syncing into the cluster, and I couldn't go into
controls. Right, Mark? I did a PR, but nobody was there to approve it.
Yeah, right. Like there's a million things where the reality of enterprise and responsibility and siloing conflict with the I don't want to say academic, because that's not fair, but the
I could say real world, because it's great for 9 to 5.
I don't want to say real world versus academic, because I don't think that that's a good way to put it. But the difference between the cleanliness of GitOps architectures and platform design and the messiness of, well, you might have millions, if not billions of dollars running in a cluster. Nobody wants to hear you couldn't make the change because of some control.
Yep.
Right. And, the controls, and this isn't even a security versus a compliance thing, those controls always need to have mitigations, right? No control out there has one layer,
Right.
right?
Right.
There's no, I'm a security guy, right? Like I believe in security. I think you want to do things the most secure way. I think when you do security right, it makes life easier, not harder. But at the end of the day, if you've got something that people are relying upon you on and you can't do it because the controls are in place, well, that means your controls don't have good redundancy, don't have good backups, don't have good secondary approaches.
Yep. Yep.
And so, not necessarily direct, although I will bring up with Valero and these backups. Are these backups encrypted? Like, can Valero encrypt the backups?
I don't think it's a native feature, but what you'd normally do, you can encrypt at rest, right? But that's not going to be what you're looking for.
I'm more thinking like, let's say somebody gets access. I guess you'd need to have some kind of key to access
That's
the
what I worry about is the
backup
separation
medium.
of duties on that if you were to do something like that, right? Because typically you don't want to give that control then to the platform operators because,
Right.
heck, we've got the key. Yeah, I don't, and people think at rest does things, right? It doesn't. It just means somebody can't steal your disks and
Right.
read from them.
Exactly. I
Like if
mean,
somebody
what was
copies
it?
the file, it does.
Yeah. I mean, S3 went to encryption at rest when there was that one summer. Was it like 2018, 2019, where the in fashion thing was to go scanning S3 buckets that were, open and anonymous just to download data. And it's like, okay, we're encrypting it now. Well, but I get the API, it's encrypted at rest, but that just means that if I walk into an Amazon data center and steal it, I don't need to go to an Amazon data center and steal it. I'm just using your anonymous API. So what the hell does this do for me?
Yeah.
So I imagine there's got to be some layer of.
I'm just doing a quick look at some docs and yeah, so it itself doesn't. I didn't think it would, but it leverages like the native type of S3 encryption, like the server side
Right.
encryption. So and
So you want to be
typically,
really careful as to where you do these backups to, and where you do restores from too, right? Because like if I like in the scenario you just gave, where I as a platform person maybe did a backup and said, okay, go restore. I don't want to give that person access to all those backups.
right.
So now I have to do it or have a controller do it for me that
Yes,
I can
that's
trust.
where the vendor offerings come in, right? Definitely, and there's a reason people will pay for offerings. If you're
Yeah,
dealing with this from a platform level, right? You've got, but your platform people can get to things anyways.
right.
They're always trying to control other things, and I'm like, yeah, but I have cluster admin. I'm
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
I'll exec into the container. I can still list that data, but the
yeah,
container has to be able to read it. Again, people think it's encrypted. I'm like, yeah, but if the OS can't read it, it's useless.
yeah,
Right? So I'm
exactly.
like, as long as you have access, somebody can read it. You got to trust those people. You have no choice.
All right, we are
Running over.
we're a little bit past the hour. Crazy, we never do that.
Oh,
So are we going to go back to 13? Do you think
I
we're
think we
ready
should
to do
jump
that?
to. I haven't had a chance to look
Okay.
at that, but what is it? Prometheus then?
Yeah, so
Is it?
we'll jump to
I think that's a good
monitoring.
one to do.
And then I think we might have a couple of guests on to talk a little bit more about backups. Um, so barring our guests potentially saying that next week works perfect for them, I don't want to put any words in their mouths, but if we have a guest next week, it'll probably be on backups, more backups, talking about backups. If it's
But from a
going back into the
higher
chapters
enterprise level, like
on the
caching or
enterprise level,
Veeam and that stuff,
backups.
yeah.
If we are skipping out of that for now, just because of scheduling, then we are going to start chapter 15 next week, which is Prometheus and it's monitoring and logging. So
Yeah.
monitoring, we use Prometheus. Logging, we use
OpenSearch, right?
OpenSearch, which is a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And then I think think I want to find some OTEL folks that maybe want to come in and talk a little bit about the difference
It is the
between
hot term right now, right? Everywhere you look.
Prometheus and OTEL, because I know I'm a little like, what are the differences in these things? Like because I love Prometheus. It's one of those things that is just
Well, and they
so
kind of go hand in hand, right? You can
simple.
deploy OTEL with Prometheus as one of your collectors. You got to be careful how you deploy OTEL. When you deploy it as like a daemon set,
Yeah, I
bad
will
things happen.
tell you, I've never worked with OTEL, so I have zero frame of reference.
Yeah, I have enough to be dangerous. I wouldn't want to be the person talking about it.
Yeah, so well, I'm sure we between
you
the
get
two of us, we
somebody.
probably have enough friends that or people that begrudgingly hang out with us that will be happy to
Some kind of
expound.
symbiotic relationship thing you're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm sure we can find someone. And you know what? If you're a vendor out there, I'm just going to put this out there. If you're a vendor out there and you want to come on and talk about what you're doing, let us know.
I have one
Like you're
that
not. This
we
isn't like sponsored or anything. This is just pure up, you know, um,
enterprise tech at this
enterprise
point.
tech, right? So if you've got a product or a service, and big vendor, small vendor, I don't care. Um, you know, we do a very we work very hard on in the book to make sure everything is open source, because we don't want you to have to pay for something or sign up for something. That doesn't mean it's the best enterprise solution.
Concepts
And
are concepts to a point,
yeah,
and that's what we want. Yeah.
and so folks that have something, then I am, and Scott, I'll speak here a little bit for you, but I think you're with me. I'm totally into come on in, especially now that we're getting towards the end of the book. We've got almost all the labs done. Um, come on, and let's talk about what you're doing and how it contrasts to what we did in the book. And
Or not
I've
covered.
gotten,
To be
yeah,
honest, right? Because I want
uh,
to do resources with like Stormforge, Mark, as you know.
yeah, absolutely. I am 100%. Let's bring people on. Let's talk about this stuff, because there's so much out there, and it's so hard to cut through the marketing to get to the meat. And I think we have a good platform to do that.
Kind of like having Dom on for Pixie. Get right into the
Yeah, exactly.
right
And we're
stuff.
not looking for sponsorships. These are not like
No.
we do this because we have fun doing it. We are not looking to monetize it. We're not looking to
Nope.
get sponsors. This isn't stuff that people are paying for. Um, this is stuff that, because it's an enterprise book, we want to be focused on enterprises. We want to be focused on those things. And that means you're bringing in external vendors, because you're not doing this with one provider.
No. They got some of the more in depth, right? We can do a lot, but you cannot be a specialist in everything. It's just not
No,
possible.
not at all.
So we definitely have some
Awesome.
people. Yep.
Well,
Cool.
thank you so much to shout out to both Boris and Marina for coming in and saying hello.
Yeah.
I know we got this one out late, but we're gonna do next Wednesday, noon Eastern. We're probably gonna do it in 2 shows at least, because there's a lot in there.
Like we have a lot of these we have to towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Istio is gonna be topics like that. It's just
Istio chapters are going to be 2 to 3 episodes each, easy.
yeah.
And then when we get to the big finale, chapter 19, we're going to take that one real slow. Like that might be 4 or 5 episodes. That's where we're going to talk about home labbing too. Once we get past Istio, we're going to really do some deep diving into home labbing, what that looks like, different options you can take. So we're coming into the home stretch on labs, but we are going to have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who's watching at home, and we'll see you next week. And if you have the book and you love it, please leave a review on Amazon. It makes such a big difference. People, the first ones you see are often the ones that get the viewage and the buys, and the reviews do that. So, and if you already have, thank you so much. Anyway, Thank you, everybody, and we're going to call it a day.
Thanks, everybody.